going on? Hi, Mayor. How are you doing?
I'm well, sir. How you doing?
Man, I'm so proud of you.
Hey,
Goodness
man, that's a
gracious.
long time, man.
I
Long time.
know, I know. You're as good as I thought you would be. When
Well,
we were in Florida, I think we were somewhere having dinner
that's
one
right.
time.
I
Me,
remember.
you, Adrian Fenty.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. We had a good time that day.
Yeah, it
Oh,
was a good
Adrian
night.
Fenty in DC, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Mayor,
he's all California now, but yeah, back
I
then it was
recount
Yeah.
different.
our conversation together, and I tell folks I sought you out because
Yeah,
I saw what you were doing in Atlanta,
yes,
and you told me then that when your city elects you at 35.
yes.
It says a lot about your city and what your city is desiring to go or who they want to be. And I
When-
took that to heart. It's been some trials and tribulations, obviously, because
Always.
being mayor is not easy, but I've been comforted with the fact that this city really wants to it wants to go forward. Doesn't
I
want to
wanted
look.
to be in the future business.
That's right.
When you put
You
a
told me
young
about
leader
Maynard Jackson and how what Atlanta was a statement that Atlanta was making when he was elected at 35, I think.
yes, you're right.
Yeah, yeah. I remember that conversation. I took that to heart.
Well, I tell you, the job has not aged you. You look great. So I don't know what's going on
I
with
don't know
you,
about
but
that. I got some gray
yeah,
hairs in here nowadays, but
you earned every one of them. Enjoy them all, man. Just be glad to have hair, baby. You know.
I can attest to that.
I got a 8 week at home, a 2 month old at home now, and
I
so
read that. I
that
read
has
that.
been the
Joy of your life.
yes, that to me is that's just to me that's awesome. It's just a
Yeah.
great feeling. And you know what? I was telling someone the other day. I said it's interesting how you can find your voice through being a father, being a parent,
Mhm.
because there's some things now I can say, Mayor, that I wasn't able to say back when I started out as a mayor.
Yeah.
35-year-old single guy trying to tell, other parents how to raise their kids. People look at you like, man, what you talking about?
Yeah. What do you
But
know?
then when you're a parent, you're like, man, you need to be watching out where your kids at 10 o'clock in
Yeah.
the evening.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just comes off different. And I think I will, I don't even know what I was doing 2 months ago, but I tell you this, the world has changed.
How's Richmond? Tell
Richmond's
us about it.
doing great. Everything's going well. We got our little just like every city's that we got to tackle this the campus protests that are
Mm-hmm.
it's,
Yes. How's
How are
it?
you?
How are you managing that?
Yeah.
we had a clash, since October, since the horrific tragedy on October 7th, just about on a weekly basis, we've been having folks march into downtown, march from the park into City Hall or whatnot, come to city council meetings, trying to, I guess you would say, bully the city council into a resolution, right, on a pro-Palestine resolution. And we saw some escalation once we saw the copycatting all these other places.
Mm-hmm.
And last month or this past week, earlier this week, we had a clash between police and protesters. And, the university, I thought, did a good job by saying, hey, if you guys construct barricades and forts and tents, that's against policy. It's trespassing. That won't be allowed. And they pulled the trigger in terms of calling us in to assist and, stop it from growing into some big, encampment. So people didn't like it because it didn't look good.
Yeah.
I always tell folks, when you're unwilling to be arrested, it's not going to look good.
Yeah. I mean, and it's super tough. I mean, when we were dealing with that issue, I was trying to, it wasn't a student led issue, but I sent John Lewis, the legendary congressman from Atlanta, to talk to him, and they said they wouldn't talk to him.
Wow.
And once they wouldn't talk to John Lewis, I sent in the police. Because I mean, if John Lewis isn't a person to have a conversation with about progress, I don't know who would have been. And so it's one of the toughest things that you can do because the environment's so unpredictable.
That's right.
And so
Mayor,
you have to be constantly vigilant.
Well, you, I'm sure, as a student of the civil rights movement, because Atlanta was the headquarters of all that. And I always thought, the nonviolent movement meant, they were prepared to be arrested, right? They was sort of like, we're going to go and sit at this lunch counter.
Yes.
We're prepared to be arrested. We were prepared to be harassed, but we're also prepared to be arrested. when the police approach them and they're about to arrest them, they're dead waiting, they're falling to the ground so they can set the police up to look like they're being the aggressor.
Mm-hmm.
And they're surprised when they're arrested. I'm just like, isn't this supposed to be a part of the goal? Is this the goal to be arrested? Maybe it throws.
It actually adds to the credibility of your cause to willingly be arrested, right? And to go. That's what we learned. That's what King in the Birmingham jail taught us. And speaking of civil rights heroes,
there's our guy.
I'm sorry, team. I'm sorry.
How are you doing, Marinetta?
I'm well. I'm dealing with some of the same issues that you all are just talking about. At Columbia University. But just Mayor Reed, I heard you say if they didn't want to talk to John Lewis, then
they're going to talk to the police.
There you go.
Who else are you going to talk to? I mean, come on.
I said the police shortly thereafter. When they were walking there, they had somebody walking near John Lewis with a long rifle. Some person that wanted to prove that they could carry weapons, and so it's a true story. So he was gracious enough because of how much he loved Atlanta,
right?
To want to go have a conversation and have a chat. I thought our students were just amazing.
Yeah.
But the environment gets tough with that many people. I mean, we had 10 to 15,000 people in our protest, so it's tough on the city.
I missed the first part. Was this 2020?
Yeah, this is during my mayoralty. We were talking about how well the mayor's been handling his protests in Richmond.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. I've been watching you. But this is also our guy, Mayor Stoney. So good to see you. Sorry I was late.
He's a star.
Yeah. Well, this is also the guy that dealt with, statues before a lot of other folks and said the right things, did the right things for the right reasons. And so, that's called leadership. That's a lonely place. I'm sure you were not getting a whole lot of supportive, encouraging phone calls, but there are moments in this work where you do the right thing, you stand up, and then people figure it out. They can like it, they can not like it.
That's right.
Hey guys, I want to get to Mayor Stoney's story, but before we do, let me just tell the audience that Mayor Stoney has been a rising star in Virginia Democratic politics and is a protege of former Democratic Governor Terry McAuliffe. He was McAuliffe's Secretary of the Commonwealth from 2014 through early 2016 before winning a competitive race to become Richmond's mayor. And he won re-election in 2020. Now a candidate for lieutenant governor. It was going to be governor, now lieutenant governor. Like you said, just a rising star. We're honored to have you with us. And I guess, Mayor Stoney, I do want to circle back to this issue of the protests and how, as mayor, do you balance free speech rights with public safety and civil discourse? Because that's really got to be hard. Can you guys walk us through what the key is because you've all had some version of this.
Yes.
What the key is to finding that sweet spot, right? Because I'm a free speech absolutist, but that sort of ends for me when you're chanting "We are Hamas, death to the infidels" or whatever the chants are, right? So tell me how you handle this as the chief executive.
Well, here in Richmond, I feel like we are the front stage for the state. If you want to protest, you don't go to Norfolk, you don't go to Arlington, you don't go to Alexandria, you come to Richmond, you come to the state capitol. And I've experienced this for most of my term, whether it was these sort of neo-Confederates coming down to voice their support of Confederate monuments. Mm-hmm. Dealt with 2020 as well after the murder of George Floyd. And now we're dealing with the pro-Palestine, the Hamas-Israel war protests as well. And for me, we have to obviously, we know that free speech is the cornerstone of our democracy. And I want folks to go out there and voice their free speech. However, there are also rules and laws to some of this, and the rule of order must prevail. And if you are trespassing, if you are obstructing the streets, if you are yelling obscenities at individuals, that's a problem. And you have to find that balance of protecting speech, but also protecting others as well. When you start to impede on other people's rights, right? I told someone the other day, if I told you like this is my property, you're good if you're just sitting here. But when you start constructing forts and tents, and I tell you repetitively, like, hey, you can't do this. Hey, you can't do this. And then finally, when I call the cops, the police show up, then you're like, what's going on? Why did you call the police? Well, I told you were breaking the law. So there has to be that balance. I'm sure the mayors on the call have all experienced it. And, I stepped out in front in 2020 in front of a crowd of a couple thousand people, thousands. Mm-hmm. And, I was yelled all types of names and whatnot. And it was my attempt to meet these protesters. Some of them were residents, some of them were not, but meet them where they are and tell them that, hey, I hear you, but there's a process to this as well, right? I'm not going to jump out here and just give people red meat because they think it's going to calm the crowd down. I'm going to tell you the facts about what we're dealing with. There's a process, and you know what? We're going to try and be as open and transparent about the process as possible.
It also is a little more art than science. You really have to feel it and monitor it and stay close to it, because protests have rhythms and energy. During one of the protests we had, it was an 18-wheel truck, and it got surrounded by hundreds of individuals, and they started rocking it, and they were about to turn it over, and I was in the command center. And I remember going to that truck because it was reminiscent of Reginald Denny during the Rodney King riots. And I felt like if they had turned that truck over, then it was going to become something else. And I've literally, against the advice of my chief and detail, went directly to the truck and told them to get off the truck. You have to follow it and feel it. I think when you're dealing with it at its best, because you can't just take a global view. Certainly, when being in Atlanta, the cradle of the civil rights movement, you have to have extraordinary sensitivity. But you know how I am about foolishness.
We've heard
there's a conversion in the foolishness that I think has to be met, right, pretty strongly.
So Larry, when you talk about, so Mayor Stoney said, where are you going to go in Virginia? You're going to Richmond. Atlanta, birthplace of the civil rights movement. Philadelphia, we wrote it.
Yeah, birthplace of the nation.
It was written here.
Yeah,
birthplace of freedom, liberty, and democracy. Right, free speech, First Amendment. I'm a strong First Amendment person, but I'm not going to argue with my friends on here. I'm not going to try to cite chapter and verse, but there's also time, manner, and place in the law.
I love the way he did that. Look at Michael Nutter. That was good. Do that again. I mean, he went jazz on us. You know what I mean?
Time, manner, and place. So, but what we're seeing, especially on these college campuses, and I'm of course involved with a couple different universities. I'm not talking about any of them in particular, but this is now a case study, in my view, on the balancing of rights and whose rights, right? My right to express myself can't interfere with someone else's rights to be able to do the things that they would normally want to do, right? Everybody wants to be on the same piece of ground, right? We often call public safety or the police department to provide that separation. In Philly, and Mayor Reed will remember, we had Occupy, we had, we can go from Trayvon Martin to Eric Gardner to Michael Brown to, so many, too numerous to name. And then we were at office for George Floyd, his murder. We saw it, but Chuck Ramsey, our police commissioner, we told people you can march all day and all night. We'll have police in front of you. We'll have police to the side. We had specially trained officers. I mean, these officers are protecting people and their right to free speech while they are yelling at the police. The level of profanity and language that none of us would ever really want to deal with. The moment you move to violence or destruction, that is not protesting. That's violence and destruction. And so that's a different response. And so that's a part of the balance. Mayor Reed said it well. You also do have to feel it. There came a point with Occupy, which was right on City Hall Plaza, where it didn't feel safe anymore. It didn't feel like it was what it was. And you know why? Because this is what's also happening on these college campuses. They become infiltrated.
That's correct.
By professional activists, some even possibly anarchists and disruptors who take over or provide a different kind of leadership than the students might normally do. And then people get caught up in a groupthink. And the next thing you know, they're wrapped up in something that they don't even know what's going on.
Yeah.
And Larry, can I just
please
say that the vast majority of those who come to these protests and make their voices heard are peaceful. They might be spirited, but it remains peaceful. There's a small percentage out there of, as Mayor Reed stated, those who don't mind a little foolishness.
Mm-hmm.
And one bad apple can spoil the whole entire bunch. And I've seen that on many occasions where there's just, it's a large crowd and the 4 or 5 people just are there to make some trouble.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, I want to be respectful of your time, Mayor Stoney, because you're the only one with a real job on this podcast.
Wow. Nice.
I haven't seen these dudes in a few weeks. So
on a Friday afternoon, this is what we get. But
you must know you all very well. I gotta say.
I mean, it's true. It's true. But I mean, you have to say it.
But Mayor Stoney, I wanted to ask you. Richmond Magazine described you as possessing a hard-won optimism, which was a reference to your upbringing. Can you just tell our audience what accounts for your resilience, political and otherwise? Just give us your bio a little bit.
Well, Larry, I was born to a couple teenagers. My mother was 16. My father was 18 when I was born. I always tell folks that I was blessed to be raised by my grandmother. A woman from the Low Country, South Carolina, Gullah Geechee. She brought me down to Virginia and raised me there. My father followed soon after. I grew up on free and reduced lunch and went to school in a predominantly white, community. And when you are poor and Black, it's sort of, you wear that every day when you're walking in rooms and you're the only one. But my father was the one who told me that, no matter what room you walk into, I want you to go in there and compete. Don't come in there with a chip on your shoulder. Go in there and compete, go in there and win. And I brought that attitude to everything I've ever done. And I became the first in my family to graduate from high school, the first in my family to go to college, the first in my family to graduate from college. And I always felt, so I guess you could say, blessed, lucky. And I turned that into the reason why I got involved in public service, because I wanted to ensure that, young people like myself, growing up in a similar situation, had a fair shot. And I've been working on that from day one, whether working as a staffer and advising candidates. I started knocking on doors, when I was in college, organizing tough neighborhoods, trying to turn people out to vote, ran the state Democratic Party when I was 26 here in Virginia. Got to advise the governors and statewide candidates. And that's how I met Governor McAuliffe. He made me Secretary of State. And I ran for mayor back in 2016. And here I am today. And I think, I'm not special. Nothing extraordinary about me. And the men who I joined on this call, they probably have similar backgrounds. But I think growing up that way, it makes you resilient. And you're going to meet a ton of obstacles. People are going to put impediments in your way, but you have to outsmart all those impediments, find ways over, above, through, under. And that's what life has been like. But so I think, challenges only make you stronger. And I'm here today because of those challenges.
Walk me through your decision to run for lieutenant governor.
About 3 or 4 months ago, I announced I was going to run for governor. I think being mayor, number one, the toughest job in America, but it also gives you the requisite skills to be an executive at the state level as well. And I was ready. I'm ready to go. I'm in it. We are in it for 3 or 4 months. And if any good candidate has to ask your team, tell me about the path to victory, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the path to victory was there. It may have been a narrow path, but it was there. But also, when you ask your team, what's the path to victory, you want to know what is necessary for me to win. And they were honest with me. They said, you would have to go negative. You have to show the contrast between you and your opponent, but this could easily become a very negative campaign. And I put 20 years into building the Democratic Party of Virginia. You all heard about my time when I was a young man, 26 years old, running the state party. I was unwilling to tear down my opponent to win the governorship, but also tear down my reputation at the same time. So I thought the best path moving forward would be for me to jump into the run for lieutenant governor. And I think we are able to fill probably one of the most competitive tickets in Virginia history, one of the most diverse tickets in Virginia history,
Yes.
Come next November.
And that's Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger, right? Yeah.
So when she wins, she'll be the first woman to serve as governor of Virginia. And I think that's a very significant milestone for the Commonwealth. And so I look forward to teaming up with her on the ballot next November.
That's awesome.
Now, and I got to say, Larry, not an easy decision to make, I must say, not an easy decision, but as I said earlier before we started taping, there's something about having a child brings some clarity to your life.
It does.
It brings some clarity. And I was like, you know what? Yes, I am young. Yes, number two, I think this is the best decision for my family at this moment in time. And that's why I made the call. And so no looking back, I'm moving forward.
How is Governor Wilder?
Governor Wilder's great. Governor Wilder's great. As you have Andrew Young in your backyard.
Yeah.
Governor Wilder in my backyard.
Yes.
He's not only the governor, the first Black governor in American history, but also he is the
former mayor of Richmond.
So, I try my best, as you told me back then, reverence.
Yes.
And I've tried my best.
Yes.
And sometimes you're going to get some, he's going to let you know how he feels. And I understand that. But I love sitting down and speaking with him one-on-one about what's going on in the city, what's going on in Virginia. He gives me a lot of advice, and it's my choice to use that advice. Sometimes I take it, and sometimes I don't, but I think he recognizes that we got to be our own men.
Yes.
So
give him a big hug for me, please. We were on Howard University's Board of Trustees for 20 years together.
Yeah. Well, give him a double hug, but don't squeeze him too hard.
He won't let you, so you don't have to worry about that.
93 years old and sharp as a tack.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
There you go. That's good.
All
and congrats on
Governor Wilder,
walking us through
93. Willie Brown just celebrated his 92nd, his 90th. Ambassador Young celebrated his 92nd. So
Giants.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hey, Mayor Stoney, did I read that when the Stonewall Jackson statue came down, you were in an undisclosed location? And why would that have been?
I was in an undisclosed location because I was trying to avoid an injunction. I was going to try to avoid being served. I tried to get my city council involved in the process of taking down these monuments. And we did a Zoom meeting like this. Yes. And I said, hey guys, we've got the cranes waiting outside the city, ready to go, ready to roll. But I want to know if y'all are with me in this. And they did the whole hand wringing. Let's kick the can down. I was like, okay. I got off the call. I called the contractors and I said, hey, let's roll. And I went and hid out at a home not too far away from the monument, and I watched it all on TV. And I'll admit, I was overwhelmed by emotion because I watched people get interviewed who were like, I never saw young, these were older Black residents who was like, I never thought in my lifetime
Yes.
I would ever see these monuments come down. Some said my great grandmother will walk down Monument Avenue and was not allowed to come through the front door of these homes, was mandated that she go to the back door to work in these homes. And on this very same block, these monuments were being removed. And the one monument that remains today is the monument to Arthur Ashe. That's poetic justice.
It is. It is.
There you go. There you go. Nice.
Yeah, he pulled the daily on him. Daily said,
we talking about with
there
the
you
airport?
go. There you go. He said, I'll deal with permission later.
Now, what happened was, they one of my opponents, because I'm running for reelection at the same time.
Yeah.
She asked me to, be investigated. So I had the state police investigating me, all that, but all came back, never was any wrongdoing.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, people said, did you care about whether or not you're going to get reelected or not? Victory in the election is just a byproduct of doing the right thing. And I wish more people understood that, because I think they would exercise a lot more courage in their jobs, because put doing the right thing first and worry about the election later.
Yeah. And that has to be a guiding light. I mean, there are some people in our profession, I'll put it that way, who they reach a point where apparently they think keeping the job is the job. If you do this, you do it right, 9 times out of 9.5, you're going to be fine. And if somehow, some way it doesn't work out, I mean, I'd like to think that you have some capacity, something to offer where, you are employable. I mean, is this the only thing you can do? I mean, come on now. Come on.
What's interesting
have some dignity about yourself.
Is in 50 years, they remember that you removed those monuments.
Yeah.
There you go.
You know what, Mayor Reed and Mayor Nutter, what I learned as well is when you do something as well, tell them why you did it as well. That's one thing I tell younger mayors. I can't believe I'm saying younger mayors now, but I'm about to term out here at the end of the year. Yeah. But when you choose to go a certain path, when you make a decision, tell the public why you did it. Yeah. Explain to them. And either they're going to be for it or they're going to be against it. Right? You should not expect that you're going to have a 100% or a 75% approval rate. That's just not going to happen when you're the mayor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You got to call balls and strikes. You got to take tough decisions, make tough decisions. And that was a tough call to make, but it was the right.
Yeah. Tell you a quick story. When I did this is when I was in city council, created the Police Advisory Commission. As you can imagine, pretty controversial. Police were really against it. A couple of years later, car breaks down on the Ben Franklin Parkway. And a police officer came by, recognized me, stopped. I told him what was going on. He said, well, do you need to get back to City Hall? I said, yes, sir. I mean, I don't want to interfere with you. He said, no, I'm going that way. So we get in the car and it's quiet. I asked him, how long you been on the job, and some of those things, trying to get a little conversation. And he said, well, sir, can I say something to you? I said, sure. Just 2 guys in the car. He said, I really didn't like that idea that you put forward. And I said, officer, I understand, I respect that. I gave my reasons. And he said, well, here's the thing. I don't really agree with it, but at least you're trying to do something. I mean, it's to your point there, son. You take the action, you tell people why you did it. Even sometimes people don't agree with the action. They appreciate that you're trying to do something on their behalf. And they will respect the answer, even if they don't like it, because you gave them the dignity and respect to answer them, to tell them something, tell them your reasoning, and that you actually had a reason. It's like, I don't know what else to do with myself. So I think we often don't give the public the respect they deserve.
Yeah, President Kennedy's quote, we are trying.
Yeah.
And you get credit for trying. I think
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, you know, we avoid the tough topics, the tough issues.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of times where I tried and it didn't work out, but I woke up the next day and tried something else out, you know, right? Like,
Right.
and that's the great thing about being mayor and being in local government is that I can identify a problem, diagnose the problem, get with my team, work on prescriptions and solutions, and implement the problem and see it all happen in a matter of my 8 years. You can't do that in the legislature. You can't do that, you know, in Congress. You can do that as mayor.
And unless God makes a different decision, the job is yours. I would tell my staff the only thing you need to do is make sure I'm awake every day. If I'm awake,
You all right?
if I'm awake,
then they got a job, right?
They got a job.
Hey, Mayor,
Oh man.
you're in command until you're not.
we only have a couple more minutes, but I did want to ask you, Mayor Stoney, a policy question, which is for all those practitioners out there. I'm such an economic determinist. You know, I'm in the poorest big city in America, so this is personal. I've noticed that you grew your tax base. You doubled it during your time in office. What tips for other chief executives who are languishing in slow growth urban areas do you have to sort of turbocharge a local economy?
Right. You know, the real estate tax base a decade ago was $19 billion in Richmond, right? That was the valuation.
Yes.
Now it's $38 billion. And I've been lucky to be mayor 8 of those last 10 years. And number one, you got to start saying, you got to say yes to something, right? And in the South, we're always, there's a natural conservatism to risk, right? And, you know, no one wants to take risk. And I think sometimes, and I read this, then I had to experience it for myself, is the part of being mayor that sometimes they don't tell you, it's about taking risks. You don't know what the answers and the outcomes are going to be 10 years later, 20 years later, but you got to get out there and take calculated risk. And you have to be at the table with the private sector. And the private sector these days, they're following the talent into cities. And lucky enough in Richmond, we've seen those in the DMV move south to Richmond, those in the Hampton Roads area, other states have moved to Richmond. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it's because of our cultural work, right? We start removing monuments. Folks told me, oh my gosh, the city of Richmond is going to fall into the earth. The sun may not ever come back up. And the opposite has happened. People have chosen Richmond post the pandemic. And the employers are following that talent. And so we've been at the table with some of our larger employers. We got CoStar, the real estate tech company. It's, you know, they're building their biggest campus in downtown Richmond. They're going to be the tallest tower in all of Virginia. 2,000 new jobs with the average salary of $90,000 a year. Ooh. So not only have we seen a real estate tax base double over the course of the last decade as well, we've seen household median income go up by 40%, per capita personal income go up by 50%, and poverty has been reduced by 22%. So you got to take some calculated risk on economic development. You got to be at the table with the private sector and businesses. And also you got to recognize that this has to be about inclusivity, and you want to see inclusive growth. I want to see not just growth in the neighborhoods where the young professionals are moving into. I want to see growth in those neglected neighborhoods as well. And so how do we redirect dollars and get out there into those neglected neighborhoods in the past and say, you know what, we're going to build a community center here? Because a lot of times when we make that public investment, the private sector will follow.
Larry, I think we have the keynote for next year's Philadelphia Citizen. I mean, you asked for some tips. He just did a master class. Goodness gracious.
There you go. Laid it out.
Yeah, man.
You got to be for something.
You know what I was thinking.
My tax base doubled as a T-shirt. I mean, that would be the only T-shirt that I wore when I exercised.
No, that by the way, that sounded like one of the greatest gubernatorial campaigns I ever heard. But now it's a lieutenant gubernatorial.
That's a lieutenant.
Yes.
Well, Mayor Stoney, I
That's
hope you'll
great.
come. I hope you'll come back and spend some more time with us, and maybe come visit us in Philly for our next Ideas We Steal Festival, and we could talk about even in more depth this kind of thing, because you're terrific.
Let's make it happen. Mayor, no. I'll be every time I go to Philly, I look him up. He's my first call.
Absolutely. No question. No question.
And
always love to hear from you, man.
You're gonna hear from me, okay?
Yeah, you know, we'll be ready for you. We're gonna keep the lights on.
Thank you now.
You bring that campaign on down to Atlanta. We're gonna make sure you leave with more than dust in your pocket.
All right.
There you go. Tell the lady I said hello.
Will do. Larry, nice to meet you, sir.
Great to meet you. Thanks again, Mayor.
Take care, y'all.
Talk to you.
Bye-bye.
Mayors, I feel like I'm a broken record, but what a superstar.
Yeah.
No, he's on a path. He's on a path. And Larry, there are a lot of them out there. And Mayor Reed knows a bunch of these folks. I want you to, I don't know if I said this the last time we were together. I may not have known this. If you look at the top 6 cities in the country right now, all of the mayors are in their first term. And if you extend that out even to the top 25, nearly the top 50, there are very few folks who have even more than 8 years in office. There's a whole new crew all across the country. These younger, more media savvy, data driven, focused folks who are in office right now. A lot of stars out there.
That's really interesting. That's a real reason to be optimistic in these very trying times, you know?
I mean, I think that this platform and this podcast is about what it takes to deliver high quality services and move cities. But it's also about being inspired.
Yeah.
And what struck me about the conversation we had with Mayor Stoney and the mayors that are making breathtaking progress is you can feel their energy come through the microphone. You can feel it. I mean, you could feel the mayor of Los Angeles. You could feel the mayor of DC. You could feel the mayor from Texas. You could feel the mayor that was from Phoenix. There's some good stuff going on out there, y'all. Yeah.
And it's at the local level because it has to happen at those levels. Again, I mean, we've said it a million times. And Mayor Stoney reaffirmed it. You actually have a day-to-day responsibility for the health and welfare of a constituency that depends on you. They wake up in the morning, they expect clean water to come out of the faucet. They walk outside, they like a decent roadway. The street lights have to work. The lights come on at night, have to work. You call 911, you expect somebody, a professional, to show up to deal with your issue. Local government is in your life all day long. From the moment you wake up to the time you go to sleep, we are doing stuff. And the mayor ultimately is responsible for those things. And that's, you want to talk about climate change? That work will happen on the ground. Infrastructure on the ground. General services. No disrespect to, look, state and feds, critically important. They pay for a lot of stuff. They support a lot of things. But on a day-to-day basis, small city, medium city, large city, cities are where the action is. It's where innovation takes place. It's where things get done.
It's also where the leaders seem to be having fun.
Yeah, great point.
I mean, I think that there's also, they continue to retain joy. I mean, when you meet them, when they're on a podcast, when they're in real life, they're still, as hard as the job of mayor is, they're still having fun and there's a joy to it. And it really concerns me that at the federal level, I don't see the joy in it. And it's so important in inspiring people to take on hard, consequential problems.
Boy,
Yeah,
that's a
you're
great
right. You're right.
point, and I think joy is a perfect place to end because I'm always joyous, and I want to thank you guys because I look forward to these conversations because we just, in addition to it being inspiring and smart, we just have fun. I have fun with you
Yeah.
guys,
Yeah,
and I want to
man.
thank you for that.
Yeah.
So
You know,
go
I
ahead.
was looking
Go
at
ahead,
Mayor
Mayor.
Stoney's office. No, uh, Mayor Reed, I don't remember exactly what your office looked like. Yeah.
It was a palace built for Ambassador Young.
There you go. There you go. Well, just seeing his office, just the back of it, the wood paneling and everything, and I started thinking about room 215 in Philadelphia City Hall.
Yeah.
I got a little jealous. Got a little jealous.
No, I
Yeah,
know, I
there's some
know,
nice offices, man.
I know, I know.
There's some
Our
nice
office was designed after the French City Hall because Mayor Jackson loved France. And so Mayor Young wanted a space that could be built for people. And so he sent a group of architects and designers to France.
Hmm.
And only Ambassador Young could have gotten away with that. But they came and they built the new part of City Hall.
Okay.
And they built a suite for him. Our address for our City Hall is 55 Trinity Avenue.
Right.
And it's that because we could create an address, but that was for Ambassador Young's 55th birthday.
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I didn't
That's
know that. That's
incredible.
amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. Yeah, because it takes the whole block, so you get to pick the address.
Yeah.
That is amazing. Well, what's going on down there in Atlanta, brother? How you doing?
Man, it's beautiful today, man. You know, life is good, man. It's really good, man.
Talk about joy. You guys got
How
the
was the
life.
party?
Oh, man, it was good. It was
Oh
good.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I mean,
How was
it was
party?
amazing. Let me tell you something. Just briefly,
about your friend.
just briefly.
Yeah.
So, as an example of how you should be living life, just in case, you know, you need to be inspired. Mayor Brown, celebrating his 90th birthday, he walks across his own bridge named after him every single morning, 8 miles.
Whoa.
And on the day of the birthday, you know, he shops at Wilkes Bashford, and he and Wilkes that was his best friend. So that's where he gets his clothes. So on the day of the event, he is being fitted. He has his final fitting for his tux at 2:30. And it is like a ceremony. And I mean, here is a 90-year-old man being fitted for, I can't even count how many tuxes he has, but he has a new one for his birthday. For a party at the Boogaloo Club in San Francisco that's attended by everyone. And I look over, and at 1 a.m., he is as dancing as fresh as when the thing started. And just as an example for, you know, living life, and we had dinner the night before Manetta, right?
Right.
You know
Right.
the dinner.
You gotta have a dinner.
So we do the dinner, and we were having such a good time. You know the drill. So you're having a good time. So nobody wants it to end.
No.
So you come up with the next thing, right? You have all these people. So we're leaving, and he stands up, asks me what he says.
What
He says, I have to go home to finish the table settings, the table arrangements. So he is personally determining who's sitting with whom. Then you get to the dinner. And you have a splendid time because you're sitting with, I sat with a member of the Black Panther Party that took over a building and is in a photograph holding a gun. This is a true story. She was amazing. She's 82. And has a project in Oakland. But my point is, he had been up the night before.
He's doing table settings.
Personally writing out the table settings at 90
for his party.
That's amazing.
For his party. That was wonderful.
And thinking about, boy, it would be interesting to put Kasim with this veteran of the Black Panther Party. That'll be an interesting conversation.
Yes, who had known Ambassador Young, who obviously had a different philosophy, but she was in Oakland. I mean, this was just, it
sounds amazing.
So that's how the party was.
Yeah, I see.
So you can't miss the next one.
No.
So,
I hope you talked to him about coming on the podcast, because I think that would be a blast.
I did. I talked to Sydney, his daughter, who sang Happy Birthday, and she's the person that we're going to go through to get him on the podcast.
Awesome.
Hey, we'll have to have extra time for that one.
Yeah. Exactly. Let me close out here. But thank you both so much. Well, that's it for this episode of How to Really Run a City. As always, if you have questions for the mayors or ideas you'd like to see us explore, just drop us a line at podcast@thephiladelphiacitizen.org. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And now you can watch us on YouTube. Around the time that Mayor Nutter was like shot up with drugs and driving his car while we were doing this, we thought, we got to put this video online. So
wait a minute. Oh, I was coming from the dentist.
Oh, did I leave that part out?
Yes. Shot up with drugs. Come on, man. I had some dental surgery that morning.
I left out a little detail there.
None of us like, you're not gonna mess up my professorship.
There goes tenure.
He would be listening to stuff. Oh, what is he taking now?
Oh, that was funny. Oh, goodness. I'm talking about the presence of mind you have to have these days, because we were definitely about to get off the podcast.
No.
But my point is, check us out on
grand
YouTube.
Opening, grand closing. Yes. How about that? I'll be fully lucid for all the rest of them.
Yes. Mayor Nutter will now be lucid. I love having fun with you guys, and I love exploring cities, because by 2050, I've said it before, something like 2/3 of the world will live in cities. So if we don't get this right, the world is screwed. As cities go, so goes the nation, so goes the world. So for now, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.